Here we are for our next episode of the Top Innovator series. Welcome. My name is Joseph Martens. I'm your host here and the founder of the Tech Executive Club. With us today is Fernando Higuera, the CTO of HGR Industrial Surplus, a company that buys and sells surplus, really any surplus items, including machinery, manufacturing equipment, and much, much more. And before that, Fernando has been in a variety of tech executive roles in different industries. Fernando, it's great to have you in this conversation today.
Joseph, it's a pleasure having me be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me to your community.
So we had a pre-chat, right? And I shared with you, we're going to talk about leadership, and I was so inspired by a lot of the energy and a lot of the thoughts that you bring to your leadership. When you look at your journey, just reflect on your journey and what are some of the success factors you would say? Clearly, very, very successful career. What do you attribute that success to, Fernando?
I believe it's having a vision ahead of you, having the grit to decide, like, I'm going to reach for this point, and to be meaningful in every single step that you take along with it. So the way that I will exemplify this is think about when you want to cross the Atlantic. I want to go from Europe to America, or America to Europe. You know that the path is going to be rough. The waves are terrible. The wind is going to crush everything. But you had that vision. You had that vision to say, like, I'm going to cross it. I'm going to go to the other end. It's that grit that gets you push forward across the waves. And when you look back, and then you see all this smooth sailing that you did. That's what has been my focus on my career. Have that hope. Hope is it's the main power tool that we all have in being able to put that hope to motion every single day and says, like, I'm not going to stop just because today I'll hit the wall. That's the grit that you need in order to move forward.
Wow, many questions bubble up in my mind now. Let me start with the one of how to share that with the team. Now, we're all tech leaders, and technologists like to dabble in details and like to get into the weeds of things. How do you get your team to see the vision, to buy into that vision, and to some extent let go of the details, probably?
It's a different change in mindset, right? For an engineering to look into the big picture rather than the nitty-gritty of the situation. In my experience, what helps my team to see that vision is when you guide into those discussions. I'll be very clear. One example.
Mm-hmm.
We need to leverage infrastructure as code. Like DevOps is a very powerful practice in a field. It's always changing. And it's one of the biggest bottlenecks when it comes to, hey, we need to launch and setting our infrastructure properly that it scales up in the ways we need it to, have the proper observability, as well as the governance. We always lack when we do it well. So by the end with the team, instead of going, you gotta go and figure out how infrastructure as code works. For me has been, hey, there's a new platform, there's a new solution called infrastructure as code. Let's take a look at Terraform. What it does for us. Let's terraform something very, very small in our sandbox and being hands-on with them so they can experiment. And then once they start getting their hands-on into the product initiative that I want to start working on, then give them the ability to lead that. Let them ask questions. Let them break things. But most important, tell them to come back with the new learners. Apply these learners to what they're doing and pivot fast. So that way they own the journey, and they're the captains of that ship to take us to the other end. And when they earn that, and when they start having the trust from you, that you are there with them at the same time, that they know that you trust them to guide them, they take extreme ownership of the process. And that is extreme ownership that we need them for them to help us do the things that we can do by ourselves. So I do believe that is giving that ability, right? Help them to be owners of practice, but be with them along the way. You have to teach them, you have to learn to, you have to be willing to risk it, be willing to fail. And if you fail, move past it.
Yeah. You just mentioned the term extreme ownership, and it reminds me of a book that I just read, I think a month ago or so, titled Extreme Ownership. And I don't know if you were thinking of the same book there and
Yeah.
think back of that. So, yeah.
That
So
is
that in
that's important.
so that insight of focus on the vision and getting clarity and communicating that vision, is that something that you had from the beginning of your career, or was there an aha moment? Was there some moment where you were able to change your perspective, where you had some kind of realization and thought, this doesn't fully work what I'm doing here, but here is something that is much, much better, and that is focus on the vision?
It has been a brewing process, if I could say. It took so many iterations to get to that point.
Mhm.
I learned midway my career that doing the same old same old didn't work. Here is a document of the things that need to happen. It didn't work out that well. As I progressed and as I learned more outside of technology, as I learned more about psychology, as I learned more about how people think, what motivates, what drives them, then I started adopting this principle of the three layers. We got our analytical brain,
Mhm.
emotional brain, and then you got your reptilian brain, the why we do things. So I combine those different skill sets, and I'm pretty sure in the audience is going to start popping this light of, aha, Simon Sinek, she's so forward. True, that was one of the foundationals in my leadership skills. But the second aspect of what allowed me to own it in is opportunity that they're seeing about Insight, it's a Fortune 500 company, to train with the U.S. Military Academy on how special forces think. I mean, we're talking about very specific, high level, high risk scenarios and how they navigate through that VUCA, that uncertainty, that volatility. And how do we train that level of professionals to operate? And they apply that to or they work. So with that, I going into my framework, and it's a framework that ultimately I use and help us to navigate the process. Everything has a why. So from an up leadership, we explain like this is why we want to do X, Y, or Z. And then from my engineering team, this is why it matters. And this is the end state that whether it's finance, marketing, you name the department, person, team, or the need is, it is our job to define how we're going to achieve it.
Mhm.
So let's put together our heads and think out about how we're going to do it. Because again, that's the extreme ownership. It is for us as a team to own the how and to deliver on the how, to put together the contingencies, to put together the plan in which we're going to deliver. And then we present back and say, like, this is how we're going to execute. We get our crew fight and then we deliver them.
Yeah. You mentioned military, special military operations, right? And it made me realize the book Extreme Ownership is written by a couple of military guys, if I remember that. Yeah. Um, I've not been to the military. My experience or my outside perspective is that it's a very clear leadership style. It's very rigorous. There's a lot of training happening in the military on leadership. And it seems to be very, very applicable in the professional world as well. Tell me a bit more about how the connection between military leadership training and in the business world, how that works, and maybe also what some of the limitations are where it doesn't work as well.
Good question. It doesn't work when we set those hard boundaries, right? There are hard boundaries for a reason in the military. But I think the distilling what works for the military into the business is clarity. Being able to have a clear message, clarity on all what needs to be accomplished, your end state, and why it matters. So we do two things. We tell them this is what needs to be done and why it matters, because we really want our teams, we really want our members to be fully engaged, logged on into the mission and development mission. And that's why we ask, and I ask, tell me why it matters, not just to do what you're trying to achieve. Yes, we're trying to achieve a 5% boost in EBITDA or whatever it is. That's the end state. But why it matters to the business? Is it going to move? Is it going to allow us to improve our operations, be able to reduce the number of people that are working overtime? Tell me why it matters. It's just I'm wanting to connect, I'm wanting to feel 100% agree and 150% connected to that ideal. That way, they can truly lock in and engage at that killing level, at that some conscious level of like, this is what matters for a company. And that's what I think it's the benefit of that training out, creating the clarity about why it matters and what the end state is drives into the business.
Okay. Okay, got it. So that was a bit of a conversation about the past, right? Leadership journey so far. Let's talk about today. What are some of the things that you feel like you haven't quite cracked yet in your leadership journey? So what are some of the things where you get a sense of, this is a good tool, this would be helpful, wouldn't it be great if this and this happened, but you feel like you're not quite at the mastery level yet?
Oh, and there's so many things that I need to be advanced there. And some of the things that I put my hand on. I do think that nowadays we are, as engineering team, we're faced with this scenario where AI is casting a shadow on us about, is it going to take a job? Is it going to replace? I mean, and it happens because organizations just saw the value of like, well, if we just hire AI and we deploy AI, we can actually handle more like scale. We can do more things with less people. But that really isn't the nature of AI, really. And the AI is not here to replace this. AI is here to mental capacities. We are the ones that put a man on the moon, and we're the ones that are going to put another man in another solar systems. AI is going to allow us to do that. The part that I'm trying to master is, how can we go from the traditional like supporting the Gen AI and just helping you do things here and there to be more fully embedded in your everyday in a scenario, right? Like, how can I have another person, another me that can handle more things on the side while I'm concentrated on doing, like a personal task. And then meanwhile, my other me is handling the business side of the everything. We're far from it. And I've seen a couple of products, a couple of solutions, they claim to do that, but they are far from meeting the target. Because again, you just throw in we're just using an API to connect to OpenAI or ChatGPT and handle questions and learn a little bit. There's so much more. It's just like an iceberg. There's so much more underneath it that is not even scratched by the product itself. That's the area that I'm trying to learn more about. Like, how can I create the same mindset that I have on communicating with people to create this clarity and ambition, right? Like, why it matters, what the end state is. So that way, when this autonomous agent communicates to other members of the session, it truly is an extension of me. Okay. Working on like, how do I add those levels, right? Because you got NLPs and you got the generators supporting your ChatGPT or your transformers, sorry. But then we have a psychological level that we as humans have it, but the machine cannot have that. So how do you translate that into a machine to process it, to leverage life?
How do you feel about that prospect?
It's scary.
Appreciate the honesty here. Yeah.
So, I mean, just imagine like a machine that can understand, you can truly sense your feeling and be able to change your mood. I think it's a double-edged sword, right? From 2022, 2023, actually, 24, that we saw the major layoffs on all tech companies, really, there are thousands of engineers laid off. Many of us, we felt that we needed to, we were stuck in a situation like they can't find a job or things happen, and we needed a tool. And I think that that's the part that AI could help us, that we can communicate, tell our problems, be a listening ear, that we can just have those conversations and guide us. But once you start layering in the ability to truly understand emotions and psychology, what goes behind this in neuropsychology, neurology, and then have AI be able to manipulate that, that's scary, because now you can start generating messages and content that truly is subliminal to your mind. Okay, double edge. That's a beautiful thing, but it's scary there.
Let's go back to your leadership journey and let's take a peek into the future or speculate about the future. So this is not a question about positions, titles, or companies or anything like this. It's a question about you. Where do you see your leadership journey be in the next 5-10 years? So again, not position, but when you think of yourself as a leader, how will Fernando in 5 years or 10 years be a different leader? What will have changed then? What will have expanded or leveled up or grown from where you are today?
I believe that I see more with every year in leadership. I see myself getting more and more polished. My early years in leadership were, as anyone else will expect, right? Like learning, where I'm acting. But I see myself more on improving my advisory abilities to teams, not just in engineering, but advising in other areas of business on here's how we can transform. And I've done that before in consulting on how innovation transform the business itself. But I want to set aside the innovation like so. I want to transform truly at the core of every single human. I'm very interested on what goes behind our brains and our minds, how it works and what makes it click. And I believe that if I can just help discover those patterns and use that to empower other teams to leverage the capabilities really and to be the next version of themselves, that's my goal. That's my next horizon. Okay, what to do.
Okay, got it. One last question for you, Fernando, and then we're going to land the plane. What is something that you have discovered in your leadership journey that is clear to you? You've seen it, you've realized it, you know that this thing is there, and you also notice that many other people do not have that insight. So something that might be a blind spot for many, but because of experience or because of what you've done, you have that aha moment, you see it, and it's clear to you. What is something like that?
I believe it's this ability to create your own blueprints. I created my own blueprint. I didn't wait for anybody to tell me, you got to turn left here, you got to go into this career, you have to take these classes, or you have to take these different roles to get to your work, to get where you want to be. You're the master, you're the commander of your ship. You're the master of the fate.
Mm-hmm.
So craft your own blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean what the future has to mean. None of us do. I don't know what the future has ahead of me. I don't even know what we're going to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be alive tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the point is, set your blueprint, because that blueprint is going to be your North Star. And where do you use yourself? Who's the when you ask your 5-year-old or your 8-year-old, listen that you like, is going to be proud of yourself. And when we look at yourself being a teenager, 80s, 90-year-old person, I might want to be proud of what I accomplished. Then you set course for your blueprint. And where do you start seeing those different steps? Is where you want to start right and guide that. If they're not shooting in the dark, just setting that specific blueprint for you. Whatever works for me may not work for us. Again, it is that blueprint that helped me guide my own journey.
That is powerful. That is really powerful, right? That realization that we are really creating the world in which we live. And it goes back to the extreme ownership message, right? It means taking ownership of our life and really shaping that. Fernando, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. Things that will stick with me is that clear focus on the vision and at the end, the ownership. Absolutely love that, Fernando. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Of course, appreciate the invitation.
For everyone else who joined us, thank you so much for being here today. I hope to see you again at the next podcast. And until then, keep your brain cells active.